Hi, Pastor Gary here from Calvary Chapel, Gloucester County, and of course I'm your teaching pastor with a moment of truth. Today our special guest is Rita Reyes, who is the executive director of Choices of the Heart. Choices of the Heart is a faith-based, nonprofit 501c3 program that helps in assisting girls and women and even men when they're confronted with the choice of a crisis pregnancy. So we're excited. Rita is a friend of ours. She speaks in our church, and we're just happy that she's going to sit down with us today as we ask her a few questions about choices of the heart. Well, it is a joy and a pleasure to be able to come to you today and to once again, I believe it was a year ago that we interviewed you, and here we are with Rita Reyes, and of course Rita is the executive director of Choices of the Heart Ministry. And here on at 90.5 Hope FM, and of course, we're a Moment of Truth, the radio ministry out of Calvary Chapel, Gloucester County. We couldn't be more pleased than to once again be able to interview her and to talk to her. So Rita, we're so grateful for your time and you coming over to be part of what we're doing here. And it's an important message. We want it to be out there among the people. So you are executive director, right?
Yes, that is my title.
I didn't know if they made you Pope yet or not. I was just curious.
No, I am the executive director, and I'm the co-founder of the ministry.
And you are the co-founder. Now, who did you find this ministry with?
It was me and my family, my mom and my dad.
That's right. And they were in the church not long ago, and I remember when you pointed it out, the day you spoke, actually.
Yes.
So, and you did a great job, by the way.
Thank you so much.
And so, as always, we're very excited to have you, and we want to ask you a series of questions, and so how about we just get started?
No problem.
We'll just do that. Okay. So, first question I'm going to give to you, and I want you to think it through a little bit, but please just kind of speak from your heart here. Let's just pretend I landed on planet Earth from Mars. I have no idea what's going on around me here, and I run into you and I ask you, I see you going into Choices of the Heart, and I ask you, well, what do you do? What is it that the executive director of Choices of the Heart, what is it that you do for this ministry?
I am the visionary for the mission, the ministry. I am making sure that the policies and procedures are followed and adhered to. I always say this to my staff. I am the protector of this ministry, making sure that we're all doing what God has ordained us to do within the structure that the board has laid out and the policies that they've laid out. That's my job.
And you mentioned earlier your family was involved with the co-founding of the ministry.
Right.
Are they still involved actively in the ministry?
As donors, they're involved in the events a lot, but they used to be board members. They are no longer board members.
I can only imagine your dad and your mom. I can't imagine either of them not being involved. That's for sure. When we're talking about the now, do you refer to it as pro-life, right to life? What do you the movement? What do you refer to it as?
We refer to our ministry as life affirming.
Life affirming.
Because the words pro-life have taken a bad rap over many years. So we call ourselves life affirming. But certainly we are pro-life, and we are in the pro-life movement.
Well, you mentioned something that I want to touch on briefly then, and that is you mentioned how it's taken a bad rap. All right. I, as a young man, I grew up under the idea that it is pro-life, and but I can understand. There's a lot of things to get. What are some of the wrong assumptions do you think that people make about pro-life or the movement you're involved with? What are the assumptions that are made? That
pro-lifers are extremists who choose to use violence to make their point, to save lives. They will handcuff themselves to abortion clinics, threaten with violence. And that's the rap that have been given because there have been extremists in this position, as there are on both sides.
Yeah, right.
But unfortunately, the picture that's painted is that all pro-lifers are extremists.
Do you ever see, as I think through the scriptures, I think of a guy like Paul or Silas or Peter, and I often think that for a lot of the causes in the world that we have today, and especially for the cause of life, Do you think they'd be in jail today? Do you think that they would be the kind of person that would take such a radical stand?
Well, they were in jail, right, when they were doing
Well,
their thing,
they
right?
definitely were in jail, but I'm saying for the cause. Do you
Yes.
think that they would be in jail today?
That's a hard question, Gary. I don't know. Would Jesus be in jail? I mean, I think the approach that pregnancy centers take is very similar to the approach that the apostles or the prophets or Jesus would take, in that we love without judgment.
Do you think that there's ever room for, obviously not violence of any kind. We don't want to extol anything about violence, but like an extreme, do you think there is room for people to pick it outside of abortion clinics and that type of a thing? Is it effective, do you think?
We have a lot of groups that are now praying outside of abortion clinics, not so much picketing anymore.
Okay.
They are effective. They have been effective. There are many stories about groups that are outside abortion clinics praying every day at the clinics and changing hearts of even the workers that are going into the clinics. So I think it is effective.
Okay, very good. But you don't necessarily advocate for that. In other words, your group, Choices, doesn't necessarily do that.
We would never partake of that, because we want that client who's going to come in who may have left that clinic and see us as not associated with any other thing outside of what the services are that we provide.
Gotcha.
So we actually have a policy that we will not participate in those types of things, so that we can keep our ministry kind of sacred to what we do, and we aren't viewed as judgmental in any way.
Right.
It's very important. But we feel like that first step is the prayer and the picketing and all the stuff they're doing outside of the clinics, very important. They're like, if I would say it this way, step 1, and we're step 2.
Gotcha. You've been in this ministry how long now? When did you start Choices?
Well, I was just having this conversation with some people. I got involved in pro-life work as a single mom.
Okay.
Somebody in my church said, hey, you'd be great in a pregnancy center. I'm like, no, God can't use me. I had an unplanned pregnancy. It's not going to happen. I'm tainted.
So this is also part of your motivation.
Yes.
On why you do what you do.
Yes, exactly.
So then how long ago was it?
That was over 25 years ago.
Wow, you've been doing this for 20. What motivates you still?
Life.
Life.
Our first baby, born to Choices of the Heart, is 22 years old. He was just 22 a few days ago.
Wow.
He's an active part of the community. He is now, he's a man. And you think about that, and you think about how many have come through our doors that are now a part of society, a part of culture, a part of schools. It's amazing. That's what motivates you.
And you still that drives you each day to do it.
Yes.
Wow.
100%.
Wow.
That and all the crazy that's going on, right?
Well, there's a lot of crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there is a lot of crazy.
For sure.
Is abortion ever ethical?
No.
No. So when we are confronted with the scenarios, which we always are, what do you do about if a child is born because of a rape situation or impregnated, if it's a person that has special needs challenges, or if there was incest, whatever. So you're saying under no circumstance would you say it's ethical?
Abortion is a violent act. We see it as a violent act.
Oh, okay.
So I always, when I talk about rape is a violent act. So having an abortion after a rape is like being mugged, and then the mugger hitting you with his car from being run over. It only compounds the situation.
Right.
Great story, real quick. There is a center in Egg Harbor Township. The founder of that center was raped as a young girl. Gave the baby up for adoption, never married, did pro-life work, started the pregnancy center, never had any other children. 25 years later, her daughter comes back. She's pregnant. She's going to have a grandbaby. She wants to meet her mom. That director of that pregnancy center, very ill. That daughter is now taking care of that mom.
You're kidding me.
after all these years. And she's no longer the director of that pregnancy center. But the point, Gary, is that the one person that would be her caretaker in the end of her life, she sacrificed for in the very beginning.
Amazing.
If she would have destroyed it, it would never. And I think that's such the tragedy, because I know so many people in my own family, friends who are older now, and they've had multiple abortions, and no children, and are now counting on extended family to care for them because of a choice that they made.
It's one more of the dirty little secrets, right?
Yes,
Like you're
yes.
not really prepared to think through or anything.
Right.
Is the abortion issue an emotional issue then? Is it? Do you think the other side, as well as, I would hope that on the side of being pro-life, that it's more about, morality, ethics, the standards that are right. To kill is wrong. What motivates the other side? What would you say? You deal with them.
It's so politically charged right now, and that's unfortunate. Their motivation is my right. My right's going to be taken away from me. It is not any different than when slavery was legal. We've talked about this before. Right. The South felt like it was their right. They had an industry that they needed the slaves for, and they were very dependent upon them.
Sure.
And so, why would that be taken away from them? It's the same thinking. It's my right to be able to choose what I want to do with my body, but that's a flawed statement. We know that.
Well, sure it is. Well, not just because of the spiritual pursuit of it. Obviously, those of us who are believers, we believe that God has created us, and so we are obviously. But isn't it interesting in all these moves that you have to diminish the person that you're subjugating to whatever it is, whether it's mistreatment. So the Nazis with the Jewish people.
Yes.
You had mentioned the slaves. The slaves were considered 3/5 of a person. And now with a fetus and with is it viable life? Which I can't hardly believe that's even still an argument. Like, are there still people that try to argue whether it's viable life? I mean, we operate in Europe.
They ignore it more than anything.
But they know it. They got to know it. You can't just act like it doesn't exist. Right?
Well, they do know it. They won't recognize it. They won't look at the screen, for example, of an ultrasound. They know it's a baby.
Speaking about that, then, so one of your main emphasis is to get that young girl to look at that screen, though, right? And what's the percentages if they come in and they look at that and they see that?
Between 70 and 80% will say, I'm going to now carry to term.
Wow.
But recently, there's been a jump in the girls who don't want to look at the screen at all. I'm not looking. So I got a little, me, a little controlling. Yeah. I said, look, if they want the verification.
Wait, did you say a little controlling? I'm sorry. I'm going to spit my coffee all over the stage. But go ahead.
If they want the ultrasound in our office and they want that verification, because that's what they want in order to get their Medicaid card to pay for the abortion.
Oh, okay. This is why they come in and do it.
They may, yes. They may.
See, I was wondering, what's the impetus then for a person to come in if they're so anti?
Now
why?
I'm forcing them to check off on the form that they are going to look at the screen and verify that is what we're showing them is what is developed inside of their uterus. That the tech will ask them to check a box saying that they saw the screen, they saw that we performed the ultrasound properly, and then they can get what they need from us.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never realized. Okay, so 70 to 80% then, if they do look, are going to go through with the pregnancy.
With the pregnancy, yes.
Okay. Well, let's play a game.
Okay.
All right. Let's play word association.
Sure.
All right. Now I've got some words here. I don't want you to see them because I want you just to. This is where you just kind of give me your response. You can expound on it a little bit.
Not just one word?
You don't have to give me one word. You can give me a response to it.
Okay.
But if you start to go too far down the road, I may stop you at that point.
Okay.
And so just right now, 4 of them. Okay, the pro-life movement. You're delaying. Don't be politically correct with me, Rita.
Saving lives has been, right now, the reason why we are. It's a remnant of people, though. I'm stopping what I'm saying just to say it's a remnant. It isn't what it used to be.
It isn't what it used to be. What do you mean by that?
It used to be churches, a lot more churches would jump in. It used to be, I want to say, Gary, a lot more fierce.
Well, let me go to my. Well, it's funny that you said it because one of my word association words was the local church.
Weak.
And I'm just poking at you now.
Weak.
I'm a pastor, so I love to hear what she's got to say. Weak. Why do you say weak?
Weak. Cowards.
Cowards.
Many.
That's a strong word.
Many are cowards.
Why? Why do you think churches are cowardly when it comes to this movement?
They're scared.
You've watched them in 25 years go
Yes.
from fierce, the word you
Yes.
use, to now cowardly, which is a huge spectrum. So why?
They don't want to lose people. And I'm talking about in the area where I am, in a deep blue state.
Yeah.
Okay? And I say this with you as a great exception. There are very great exceptions. We've had our doors. I'll give you the numbers. Our budget is
Wait, the numbers of the churches?
I know.
Please give me the phone numbers.
I'll give you the numbers of support. That tells
Okay.
you where it is.
Yeah.
Our budget is over $600,000 a year. Churches make up 2% of the entire giving of the budget.
So they won't even take them on and support. Like, they won't even. I know one of the things we're involved with is baby bottles and wanting to push volunteers and getting the word out. Where do you see the biggest lack of a church in? Is it the finances?
It's finances, but I think more importantly, it's awareness.
Will they partner with you? Will churches partner?
Partnerships, what do you mean by partnerships?
Like, in other words, will they stand with you? And so if Choices of the Heart is doing the walkathon down in Ocean City or baby bottles, will churches get involved on that level?
Some will. Some will. A few will. We have, for example, we have church levels. An A church is a church like yours. Have us out on Sanctity of Life Sunday. Do the baby bottle campaign. Get involved in the Walk for Life. Be a part of all of our events. Have me to speak several times. That's an A church. Then you have your B, your C, your D, and it goes down from there.
Right.
Okay? So we try to make a C church a B church, and
Yeah,
then
sure.
make a B church an A church. That all comes from relationships.
Okay.
They're not going to marry you until they date you.
Right.
But they're not going to date you until they get to know you, right? So getting to know me, can I get in there to have a conversation with somebody to say, listen, the church, and I want to apologize. I shouldn't say coward. That was wrong. What I should have said is
No, I would say cowardly, but please.
ignorant to the reality. The church
Is it kind of like the girl not wanting to look at the screen? Is
Yes.
that what we're seeing from pastors
Yes.
and churches? If I act like it's not there, it's not there.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And, some churches will give me a few minutes to come up and just give a quick update,
Sure.
which is great, It's better than nothing. Many churches will not even call you back.
Really?
When I tell you the amount of countless hours that we spend to just get somebody on the phone or respond to a letter or a note or a gift, it's not there.
Excuse me. What's the most effective tool then? Because you said, like, with a girl who is pregnant, to come in to get her to look at that screen. What do you think is the most effective tool to get the average church attender who is sitting in one of these churches, who's a D, E, F, G, whatever, maybe one that has nothing to do with it? What's going to stir that person to go to their pastor and say, hey, how come we're not involved with this?
All of our marketing, everything that we do, getting them in the house. I just right before I got here, I was in a room with 15 people who said, I want to become part of this ministry. And they come from all walks of life, all churches. Those people will then take back the word of what this ministry is doing, Choices of the Heart, to their church. That's that person we call the liaison.
Right.
That's that person who grabbed me in church and said, you'd be great in a pregnancy center. So when you have voices inside the church who are then encouraging their pastors to get involved, that's the way to get churches involved. So our marketing, our branding, our website, the work that we do, the babies that are born that go out, and then,
Right.
They bring in the people, we get those people to go back out and get their church. It's a little backward, but that's how it has to happen.
If it's effective, it's effective.
It's effective.
Speaking on behalf of pastors, they can be a squirrely bunch, that's for sure. Because
Yes.
let's face it, you're and I hate to make it come down to dollars and cents, but for so many it comes down to dollars and cents. They're looking at their budgets and they're thinking, if we lose, if you were in a church of 100 people and you lose a couple families over the issue, it can really make an impact
Correct.
on your budgets. That's for sure. So anyway, so let's go on with our word association.
Gary, I will say this though, and just one more point on that. We like the pastors to understand that we're providing a service to the girls, many of whom come out of their churches,
Sure.
and taking it off of their plate. They're not going to counsel. Do they want to continue to counsel men and women who've had abortions, who are now have pregnancies, teenage pregnancies in their families? That's what we're there for.
Absolutely.
We're an extension of the church.
Absolutely. And speaking on behalf of Calvary Chapel here, I know that we have sent people over there, and I know that, and the other outlet that is great for us is, as a church, you have so many places that people can jump in and serve. Well, here's a great organization that we have people, and quite a few people of our church, that go over and serve at
Yes.
Choices. So it gives them an opportunity to be able to do something they're very passionate about.
It does.
So for a pastor, look, we're going to be at odds in this world anyway. Or
Yeah.
if you're not at odds in this world, then
Right.
you're not doing what you need to do. But
Right.
but anyway, so let's go for something a little less controversial. Board
ahead.
Association, Planned Parenthood,
The world's largest provider of abortion.
without a doubt, right?
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Now their propaganda says the opposite. They say it's only about
Yeah.
3% of what they do.
Yeah. If you, I have a whole little blog about that.
Please.
It's like saying a steakhouse doesn't serve steaks.
Right.
Okay. We offer French fries and mashed potatoes.
Right.
And if you really do the percentage of how many steaks they serve, it probably ends up being a small percentage. Same thing with Planned Parenthood. That's how they do their numbers. That's how they get their numbers.
Right.
The abortion, they do about, I don't know if I get the number right in my head, I believe it's over 300,000 a year of abortions in the United States. And they get $550 million from the federal government every year.
From the federal government.
From the federal government.
Can you imagine?
Yes.
Now, let's delve in just a little bit deeper and pick at it. What was the controversy not that long ago where the executive director, whoever came out and was talking about the transportation of body parts and that type of a thing?
Yes.
Planned Parenthood's involved with that.
100%.
Why would they be involved with that?
Money.
It's money. Is that what this all comes down to, Rita?
Money. Yes.
It's all money.
The scripture verse that says, for the love of money is the root of all evil. It's
Yeah.
not money, it is the love of money,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Because you can be poor as dirt and
Yeah.
still have...
Why did you look at me and say that like that? I don't understand that. But
But yeah, it's money.
that's why they do it.
Yeah.
A few years, I think it certainly wasn't the last two times. I think it was three times ago when you came in and shared, and you talked about some tapes they had of Congress people discussing. I was appalled. I was
Yes.
shocked. Like my little pristine world. I mean, I know there's bad people and there's evil in the world, but to hear people in Washington openly talking about. So this is part of the controversy. Now they're trying to do damage control, the way I understand.
Yeah,
over
and
Planned Parenthood.
everything's kind of being kept down, quiet. You don't hear a lot about it anymore. And even the guy that was undercover doing it, they took him to court. And that
Yeah, can
was
you imagine
all
that?
involved. Oh, crazy.
Freedom of the press.
Yeah, good, evil, good,
Yeah,
So
it's kind of scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So you see Planned Parenthood, and my thought is, if Planned Parenthood, if 3% of their operating is the abortion end of it, then just do away with it. If it's only 3%,
Right.
Right?
Well, I
just
think
get rid of it.
that's what the Trump administration said. We'll give you the money, stop doing the abortion part, and you'll still get it. And that didn't happen.
No, they're not going to do that.
That didn't
What's there besides money, though? There's got to be more to the idea of these abortion mills and Planned Parenthoods. It can't just be money, right? I mean, in other words, is it ideology? Is it
That also.
Yeah.
That also. Yeah, I mean, they're leading these women's marches. I mean, and they're right out front and center in all the campaigning, and because, these politicians, many of them, are being greased. Their pockets are being greased.
So
by
it's
Planned
money again
Parenthood.
with them.
100%.
I love the politician, which my tongue is in my cheek. I love the politician who will come out and say things like, well, privately, I am against abortion.
Yeah.
But publicly, I have to stand up
Yes.
because I'm a leader and I have
Yes.
to. Have you ever heard
Yes.
anything so stupid in your life?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
How these people get elected is beyond me.
I know.
I wouldn't let them be dog catchers.
I know. And it just begs the question, like, okay, if you are willing to vote for something that you're personally against, do I even want that kind of a person
Well, that's my
representing?
thought.
I mean, what is that?
What else is coming down the line,
I
right?
I know.
But that goes back to, again, the church and everything else. Do
Yeah.
you think that the average church attender thinks through the whole idea of what abortion really is all about, down to let's take it to the level of just past the political operation of it, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent or libertarian or whatever else is out there, right? I guess socialism's catching on,
Yeah.
which is
crazy.
too.
Yeah.
But what do you say to that person in a church? Let's say they're in a liberal church. Let's say they're in a mainline sort of denomination that sort of left the founding roots years ago, and now they're. What do you say to them? Where do you take them and say, "Hey, listen, this is a matter of morality. This is on God's heart."
If it's a church person, you have to go to Scripture, and you have to address it from the point of Scripture, where the Lord is always, from the point of John the Baptist, an unborn child, recognizing Christ.
Well, that's a great point.
In the womb.
Fearfully, wonderfully made.
Fearfully and wonderfully made. And speaking David, the way he wrote that psalm about you knit me together, you made my inmost parts. It's elementary for church, right? But the mainline denominations, again, the inerrancy of Scripture, it's all about what culture now determines.
I was reading an interesting article, and it was written from. I'm not going to mention the name of the man that wrote this article. He's a clergy member, and whenever you say a clergy member, he's not evangelical, but he's just a clergy. He'll say he's evangelical, and he posed, I think it was 8 questions, and his premise was he wants to ask the radical pro-choice people and the radical pro-life people. So he's already encamped them in the 2 radicals, right? Mm-hmm. And he wants to ask them questions, because his premise is there's common ground. We can find common ground between and start coming to some resolutions. Do you believe there's a resolution from being able to go to somebody in the pro-choice, and I don't even like to say that, in the abortion camp, and say to them, hey, let's find some common ground? Do you see any common ground between that?
I've always said this, that if they can prove to me that it is not life, then I'll take their side. Mm-hmm. I will stop doing what I do. Mm-hmm. I will listen. I can't see anything outside of that. I can't understand anything outside of that.
So
what determines that it's life? Is it size? Is it level of development? Is it environment? Is it degree of dependency? What are the things that you're calling whether it's life or not? And I say that unless you can define it as not being life, there is no conversation.
Yeah, I don't. That's where I'm trying to get at. I don't understand where you could compromise on that. And so the premise of the article was, we shouldn't be so radical about this. And if you just kind of stand up and say abortion's wrong and it's mean, you're not seeking commonality. I don't know where commonality is.
So the real question you have to ask them is, okay, so when would you stop? When would you say abortion shouldn't be allowed? Well, maybe 2 months. Why?
Well, isn't that true, right? At what point?
Right. At what point and why? So I think the political campaign was years ago. I forget who ran with it. Let's make abortion rare, but keep it legal. Make it rare. Why make it rare?
I think Obama actually was the one who kind of has taken into that box of, while being very, very pro-abortion, would kind of pander to the pro-life movement by saying, but under the way I do it, there'll be less abortions. which
he
I
was
don't
the
quite
most
understand.
pro-abortion
Without a
president
doubt.
that there ever was.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
So, and it's not to pick necessarily on Obama.
No.
It's just that's the mentality that permeates.
That is the facts.
Yeah, that's just the facts.
It's the facts of what he allowed, what he opened up, the gates he opened up to more foreign abortions. I mean, there were many things that he did that were pro-abortion. But again, I beg the question: why would you say let's make it rare? If there's nothing wrong with it, why make it rare?
Absolutely, absolutely. It kind of reminds you again of, and you know, you hate to draw the parallels because there are people who are obviously caught up in an emotional argument. There are people who've had abortions. This is always the disclaimer you have to give because there are people who've been duped. There are people who, these young girls who have been kind of swept up in the fervor of it, and I believe there's a spiritual element to it also that's behind it that pushes this whole thing forward. I'm watching this women's march, and I'm looking at the faces and some of the irrational statements and slogans they're making, and it's just like, what is really? That's not money. That's a demonic entity that drives some of this stuff, right? So we feel for that person, right? So what does Choices do for the person that has been caught up, swept up in it, and now that young girl's in your office, she's contemplating. She's believed all of her young life because she's been told by her mom, by her aunts, by the teacher at school, and everyone else that this abortion, it's your right. You don't let anyone tell you that it's not your right. But now all of a sudden she sees that screen and she's looking at it. What is it that you tell these people?
First, Gary, we love them.
Right.
We're never going to judge them. That's not our job.
Right.
We're going to love them. We're going to lay in front of them the facts about what's going on inside of their body. We're going to offer them options beside abortion. If abortion is where they're headed and they're determined to do it, we're going to go through the procedure, the process, what it will look like when they get to the clinic. Not in a graphic way, but in a medical way.
Okay.
We're going to talk about their rights. We give them what we call a 10-point health and safety checklist. These are the things you need to check for before you have that abortion. Make sure the doctor has hospital privileges somewhere. Make sure you have all of these tests done. And we go through the whole list. And then if you have that abortion, or if you get to the point where you're about ready to have that abortion and you decide you don't want to do it, you can get up off that table at any time. Do not let someone convince you that you cannot. And we're here. We're here to help you deal with the after effects if you have them.
Even if they had the abortion.
Even if you have the abortion.
What's common, would you say? Not just, don't just spew to me scientific facts. You tell me in 25 years of what you witnessed, what's the common denominator you see from people that have come in that have had abortions? What is it what would you say are the indicators to you, like this is something that seems to happen a lot when someone's had an abortion? I'm not saying it happens all the time.
A lot of times we see women who find themselves in either more dysfunctional relationships, they go back to have more abortions, it just becomes almost a cyclical.
What's the average time people have abortions? Is there an average? Is there do women have abortions 3 times, 5 times, once?
We've seen women with as many as 15 abortions.
15?
Yes, and as little as 1. Or it spans. I mean,
wow.
they're using. That's what I try to explain to most people that don't get it. Is abortion is being used as birth control. No one understands that. And now with the RE486, which is an oral pill for abortion,
right,
it's just that much easier.
Now, is that the pill they take after they think they've conceived?
That's Plan B.
Okay.
There's
I don't understand.
I'm sorry. Let me educate you a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I'm just a male. I can't understand anything in the world we live today. I'm a guy.
Plan B is kind of like a high content birth control pill, but they take it if they didn't use protection. It's
so
the
if
next
they had a
day,
night, they fooled around one night,
yes,
and now they're worried.
They take Plan B.
Yeah, because
should be fine.
Because in a lot of cases they were irresponsible.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, it could have already implanted. We don't know. The other risk with Plan B is make sure you take a pregnancy test before you take Plan B, because if you're pregnant from a previous time and you don't know it, now you're taking all these hormones, you could do some real damage there.
Oh.
Okay.
So there's a lot more to it.
Right.
It's not just as simple as...
No. No.
Yeah.
And of course, you're giving it to mostly teenagers who Are they going to follow? Are they going to?
Are you an advocate of contraception on high school campuses and places like that?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Why?
Because I can't tell you the number of clients that come in. Let's start with this. First of all, it's against what the Bible teaches. Let's start there, because
we assume that, right?
Biblical, right? But I can't tell you the number of the clients that come in that are using birth control. Not even the pill, but all some type of contraception.
Really, condoms and
Yes.
everything else.
Yeah.
And they still get
and
pregnant.
they still get pregnant. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they still get pregnant.
So the best thing to teach, even though the world out there will snicker at, of course,
it's purity.
Is abstinence.
Yeah.
Be pure.
Be pure.
And yet,
exactly.
Because that is the one sure thing.
Yes.
Unless 3 wise men show up at your door, knocking with gifts,
right.
You're pretty much safe.
Right, and keep in mind,
abstinence.
Our client age, our demographic, it's not teenage pregnancy that we deal with mostly. Teenagers want to have the babies because they are still in the mindset of, oh, I could love this thing and I can be happily married.
Yeah.
It's the 20 to 24-year-olds.
That's the biggest.
That's the
demographic.
The largest. Yes, that's the demographic.
Does it cut across as far as socioeconomic?
Well, yeah. Mostly they're less than $10,000 a year they're earning, or they're in college. They're
really?
They're mostly white girls.
How about, okay, well, listen, I'm a firm believer. I don't think immorality is immorality, right? So,
yeah, right.
But my question then is, do wealthy people get abortions?
Oh, yeah.
They just do it in a very sterile, nice environment.
Yeah,
right?
sterile, nice environment.
They probably go away to a retreat down in the
right, or
South
it's the
Pacific.
wealthy parents taking their 20 to 24-year-old over to have the abortion.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I don't know how we got off on all that.
I know, it's very interesting though. It'll make for good radio, believe me. If I was listening out there right now, I'd be tuned right into this because I'd want to know what's going on and what's coming next.
For sure, right?
How about one more word association before we move on?
Okay.
How about adoption?
Wonderful and never chosen.
Yeah, isn't it interesting for the pro-choice crowd that they say, we're pro-choice,
yes.
That's never the choice.
Yes. And if you ever heard Dr. Levatino is all over social media because he was an abortionist that turned pro-life. And before I get off on all his story, him and his wife couldn't conceive, and here he was doing all these abortions.
Can you imagine?
He's doing abortions day after day after, in the thousands. And they're trying to adopt at the same time. It never hit him. It hit him at one point. But
is he the one that said, I realized there was another person in this room? Well, I remember a doctor who turned pro-life.
Well, his story was he actually ended up adopting a child, and that child died by a car accident right in front of his house.
Oh.
So he realizes after this child died, and he's now doing this abortion, he's holding a baby's leg.
He's no better.
And he's thinking, what am I doing? And at that moment, it all fell apart for him. And now he's a huge pro-life.
By the way, I may be mistaken, but in one of the articles I was reading, and the person seemed to be to have knowledge of this, said that anyone in the medical field, whether it's a doctor or a nurse or anything along those lines, you don't have to perform an abortion. You can walk away from it and say, because of religious objections or whatever else, I am not, because there was the Church Act that was passed a while ago.
Right.
And if you're conscious about that and you have reasons that you won't do it, you can walk away and say, and supposedly your job and everything else won't be in. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. Yeah. But you can walk away from it. And I just say that in case someone is listening that contemplates this and goes, I don't want to do this.
That's
I don't want to be involved. The nurse that has to be in that operating room, you can decline it and say, I don't want to be. The Hippocratic Oath.
I know. Do
tells
no harm.
You're not to aid in an abortion. You're not to abort. You're not to provide any means of abortion.
Right.
How in the world does it get by when everything in the world seems to be stacked against it?
I know.
Because there's a driving force behind it.
Adoption in and of itself is a selfless act. And you're asking someone who...
Have you walked through adoption with someone, by the way? In other words, can you tell me, so that young girl comes to you and you say, hey, listen, here's another option for you.
Yes, we have.
Okay, and what happens then?
Usually, if she comes in and she's thinking about adoption, we might have her talk to a couple that has adopted a child, or maybe another client who's placed a baby for adoption. But we don't get involved in the adoption because it's kind of a conflict of interest for us, because we are the advocate for that girl. We're her advocate, and we want her to know that we're by her side with whatever choice she makes. So we'll refer her to like Bethany Christian Services,
sure.
And we have referred clients, and they have placed their baby for adoption, but not a lot, not in the 25 years I've been doing it.
Okay, but But you would see adoption as viable, though.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, wonderful. And there's so many ways you can adopt now. You can do open adoption, closed adoption. You can be involved, in the adoption
We
process.
have a wonderful young couple that comes out to the church, and they are, I guess it's kind of fostering a baby with the option for adoption.
Yes.
So, we're praying for that and hoping that goes through. And
See, I think
meet
foster
people.
parents are like the most pro-life people you can meet.
Oh my goodness, I think foster parents are heroes.
Yes,
I mean, I
they
know,
are.
listen, every system's got warts and its problems, but I'm amazed. And anybody out there listening, look, if you're in that position, check it
Yes.
out, look into it, and see what you can do.
For sure.
It's a wonderful way to really make an impact. And quite honestly, as a believer, to me, it's a wonderful way to be able to share Christ with a generation.
Yes,
right?
it is.
So anyway, so let's go back to our questions. So I asked you about challenges and, those things that can be kind of, you're an optimistic person. Sometimes those things can be a little bit heavy, What about, what is the future of the movement and what do you see optimistically? Like when you look at it and you go, hey, this is good. What we're seeing right now is really good.
I think what I saw this year was amazing. I saw so many young people at the March for Life in Washington this year,
Oh, amen.
which just blew my mind because they're the next generation. I mean, their whole mantra was, "We are the pro-life generation,"
Amen.
and I get a chill thinking about it. We're talking middle school, high school. Can't wait to get up
Yeah.
and get involved, and they're marching in the cold, and they're out there, and
Right.
and they're doing their thing, and that makes me optimistic.
Yeah.
It really does. When in our office, even in our staff level, mostly of us are 50 and up, and you want to
Rita, you're not 50 and up.
Stop. Yes, I am. we want to bring in young people,
Sure.
to take on
Yeah.
that role, because one day I am going to retire, and
Yeah,
you do
right.
want to have that next group. Yes,
Sure, you're
one
going
day
to
I
retire,
will.
Rita. Sure, you're going to retire. So you're optimistic about some of these things that are going on
Yes,
like
I
that?
am, very much so.
How about, not making this a pro-anti-Trump or anything else, what's the regime in Washington? What's the temperature?
Well, that was the other thing I was going to say I'm optimistic about. I'm optimistic about the court that we have right now. We do have a nice conservative court on the court. And if the right case came up, I think we could see some change. Right now, everything's at a state level, and it's crazy where we are.
Boy, crazy. That
We're
whole
in crazy
Kavanaugh,
town.
That whole
Yeah.
Kavanaugh thing, that
Yes,
was crazy,
yes,
wasn't it?
yes.
I mean, sanity went right out the window.
Oh, it did.
I've never watched anyone tried and convicted before there was
Yes.
any proof of anything.
Well, it's very similar to what they did with Clarence Thomas.
Very similar. Very
Yeah,
similar.
It was very, very similar. We had just forgotten. History just repeats itself.
Yeah, unfortunately, again, because of the human element of the whole thing, the emotion that gets involved with a lot. But as you're pointing out, and I'm learning more and more, money plays a big role in it too.
Oh, yeah, definitely does.
Because if that court goes again, do you ever see Roe v. Wade being reversed? Or is it going to be a hybrid of it? do you think?
Yeah, I think a hybrid.
Yeah.
I think it's going to
Is
go
that the
back.
best we can wish for?
Oh, God can do anything.
Amen. I agree with that.
But I do believe that it's going to go more back to the states. Whatever this administration does or doesn't do, what's really sad is that there is a whole party out there that, where's the pro-life candidates in that party? I mean...
Well, I know what you're saying, and I agree with you. I don't know of any.
There used to be.
Yeah,
there used to be, but they've literally, the platform has just sold itself out to
A lot of
Planned
radical kind of
Parenthoods and
feeling
radical
stuff,
kind of
right.
ideas.
But I'm sure if you were to ask Democrats, like a person, a friend, a neighbor, and other people, I'm neither Democrat nor Republican, so I don't have a horse in that race.
Yeah.
But I know of Democrats that will tell you I'm pro-life. That's just what I am. I'm pro-life. And that's my next question. Well, who would you vote for?
Right.
But then I get accused of being a one-vote person.
I don't know how you can pull the lever for somebody who
Well,
thinks
honestly,
it's okay to kill a child at birth.
The truth is, I always take them back to, if I had a vote for slavery, I'd be a one-vote person.
There you go.
I'd be against it, right? I'd be anti-slavery.
Yes.
Well, that would make me a one-vote issue person.
Yes.
So anyway, that's unfortunately we're living in that world. So I think we've gone through my questions. I want to just close out with just a couple thoughts here. First of all, involvement with choices of the heart. Like I broke it down into 3 tiers. One being somebody who has no time, they're wrapped up in their lives doing all their things. How can they be involved just a little bit? Just a little bit.
Well, we only require 3 hours a week out of our in-house volunteers. So the volunteer commitment is...
Well, maybe I used the wrong word, volunteer. So let's say they're not, look, I heard Rita in church. I've heard this radio broadcast. I'm going to help. Do I donate money? What do I do?
Yeah. You can become a monthly donor. We have widows who give $5, $10 a month. You can become a liaison at your church. You don't even have to be inside Choices of the Heart. You could just represent us to your pastor, to your congregation.
And so they kind of get their marching orders.
Yes.
And then they go to the pastor and say, hey,
yes,
something I'm involved with.
Yes.
That would be a great way to advocate,
yes,
right?
We'll give them a church packet. It's just basically our history, what we do, how
Great.
we're funded, and they give that to their pastor, and they tell their pastor, we have a group of people in this church that are pro-life, and we want to be more actively involved. Mm-hmm. So a liaison relationship's a great way to get started.
Well, let's say somebody does want to go for the 3-hour volunteer. I want to volunteer, and I've got 3 hours a week, and I really want to help out.
Yes. We can do a thrift store. They can become involved with the clients directly.
The thrift store. What's your thrift store?
Our thrift store is on Gantown Road here in Washington Township, and it has a twofold purpose. One purpose of it is to give
Pastor Gary can get his clothes. I understand. Thank you very much.
Our clients, when they come back for long-term care, they get incentivized through Baby Bucks. Here's your fake money. Go over to the store, get whatever you want. For
most
your
money
baby.
in America today is
yes,
fake money. There's no gold standard behind it. Does anyone know that?
So the clients can go in there and get all their needs met for their baby, for themselves, whatever. And then the other part of it is we have the public who goes in and buys items. And that money is helping support the work of our ministry. Mm-hmm. And that's
so there's things they can do. I know we have people in the church. I know one of the gentlemen used to drive and pick up the clothing from the
He's still doing it.
What do they call that?
The bins.
The bins. I don't want to call it the dumpster. I almost called it the dumpster. That would have been terrible, right?
Yeah.
So there's little things that they can do.
Absolutely.
Now let's say someone has no life at all, like me. Let's say they've got all kinds of time on their hands,
right.
and they really feel passionate about it. What's the opportunity? What can they do?
Anything and everything.
So it's still kind of the volunteering aspect of it and everything else.
For sure. Come to the events. Like for example, at our banquet, we don't sell tickets. We have a table host who's so excited about our ministry. He invites 5 couples.
Is there any news to announce about that, by the way?
Yes. Do you want to know?
Please.
Oh, it's
now
exciting.
we've been waiting with bated breath for who let me just say this. Choices has had wonderful, wonderful speakers. Last year you had Kirk Cameron. And of course, everyone my wife's age was so excited by Kirk Cameron being there. Of course, I didn't see what the big throw was. But anyway, so you had Kirk Cameron, and then of course the year before you had Mike Huckabee. And Mike blew me away. I was in Israel last year, so I couldn't be there. But Mike Huckabee blew me away.
Yes.
I was really kind of going in there a little bit skeptical. I thought it was going to be a political rally, and I'm like, I don't really. But he just blew me away.
He was awesome. He didn't do anything political. We had Jay Sekulow the year before, and we had Rick Santorum.
Yeah, and Rick was wonderful also.
Rick was great.
So who do we have this? If I had a drum roll, I'd play.
Completely off the grid this year from politics or actors, and we went with athletes. So this year, we're calling our gala the Night for Life, NFL Night for Life.
Right.
David Akers will be our MC.
Really?
Yes, and our keynote speaker will be Benjamin Watson, who just retired from the New Orleans Saints last year. He's a tight end, 7 kids.
Yes.
Wrote a book on fatherhood.
Oh, very good.
And has a very vocal voice in the pro-life movement. He just, I think, bought a pregnancy center.
Wow. So he's that big into...
Oh, he's speaking at the 2017 March for Life in Washington. If you hear him talk about fatherhood, about life, about what the man's role is, I cannot wait to hear him at our dinner.
And he's a big guy because he was a tight end in the NFL.
So
he could hurt you if you're not listening.
Yeah, for sure.
Gotcha.
And, we wanted to make it a draw because, you want the Eagles because it's local. So David Akers is going to give us that.
Well, David Akers, I mean, the Eagles fans, he's beloved. I mean,
and we love him.
Yeah.
So, and he'll be doing the MC work. So we'll get some things out of him from just hearing him speak about his story as we go.
Okay, so when is it?
October 24th.
And what do they need to do to secure a table?
Well, they just have to contact the office. Just at choicesoftheheart.com. They can...
Can an individual, or is this up to churches?
No, an individual.
Okay.
It's events at choicesoftheheart.com. Seating's going to be very limited. We're looking for people who will come and partner with the ministry.
Listen, what she's saying is, if you know of people, she's being nice about it, but I won't have to be. If you know of people that are able to contribute, that will contribute. Listen, it doesn't have to be multimillionaires. But
Right.
it's got to be people that will open their hearts and their
Yes.
wallets to get behind this.
Exactly.
We don't need people to come eat the food and then walk out the door.
Exactly.
Right? We need people that will be motivated.
Because there's a high cost for us
Sure it
to
is.
put the event on. We try to get underwriters to underwrite it so that we can bring more
Amen.
donors in.
Amen.
Trying to get new people out, especially for this event. We think we can get a lot of people who may never have come before.
Yeah.
So we're excited about this.
Of course,
one.
you might get the 700 level from the Eagles fans. You may not want them there.
No.
They don't serve alcohol, just so you know.
But it is, and we do have a special VIP hour. We call it that.
Oh, they get their pictures. Yeah, I did that with Huckabee.
Well, major donors can
Yeah.
come for a certain cost and take
Amen.
pictures and all that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, once again, it's been our pleasure to sit here with the Executive Director of Choices of the Heart,
Yes.
Miss Rita Reyes.
Yes.
And she's always a pleasure. She's always just her heart. You can just see her belief, her heart, and her desire to see this whole movement continue to move forward. And boy, it'll be nice one day when we don't have to have this.
I agree.
It can be eradicated. Do you believe that it could be eradicated one day? I mean, do you really see? I told you years ago I believe that this will be eradicated.
Yes. If it is, they're going to need us even more.
Oh, that's true, because they're going to, listen, one thing for sure, there's more to this than just trying to get, and which is honorable and needed, than just stopping babies being aborted, which
Yes.
I still can't believe we're talking about babies being aborted and it's 2019.
Yes.
That we would kill babies in 2019 and call it clinical and call it sterile and call it okay.
Yeah.
But we will always be dealing with the ramifications of this. And,
Right.
and what do you do with that poor little girl? 20 to 24 is poor little girl to me
Yes.
now. So, yeah, you will always be needed.
Absolutely.
Amen. And you'll be there to answer the call.
Yes, we will.
Well, this has been a pleasure. And again, for the radio broadcast out of Calvary Chapel, Gloucester County. And we're so glad that we had this time. And tune in again. We'll be back on and for a moment of truth and picking up where we left off in the Word. So be blessed. We have just heard from Rita Reyes, Choices of the Heart, and she has shared her heart, her vision on what Choices of the Heart is all about. If you would like further information on Choices of the Heart, if you want to contact her, by all means, you can contact the church and we will give you information, or you can go to their website, which is choicesoftheheart.com, and find out more information on Choices of the Heart. Be blessed.